Hello and welcome back to the channel and our final one in the CC playthroughs, and we're looking at Old Forge Club by Benny K. Now I've done a number of Benny K courses in the past, and generally aesthetically really good. Playability can get a bit penal and one-dimensional at times. That's kind of been my main critiques in the past. Things he's going for: par 3 less than 125 yards, that's the fourth. Limited elevation change and manipulated tees. Okay. The manipulated tees, he's kind of said 2 pins, let's go with one tee, and then 2 with another. Okay. The manipulated tees are, and you've got some wins with them as well. So we've got a kind of court/tournament setup. Be interesting to see how much they do vary. I mean, first hole, they're basically side by side. So they're the same distance, just one is slightly right, one is slightly left. There's no real difference here. We've got bunkers down the side, so it's just a drive down the centre. Green is probably CC appropriate, I think. Maybe a little bit on the small side, but the bunkers around the green probably are the most challenging element. I guess if I want a full wedge, I'm maybe not hitting full driver. Frames really nicely. Oh yeah, I've just realised I've got to go around the block. Let's do that. Okay, so we've got the use of the remove heavy rough tool. So we're in boreal, I want to say, based on this. Oh no, autumn. Oh yeah. Autumn will do this look nicely as well. So that's an interesting way of creating a slightly different texture. However, into the sun, that's going to look very shiny in points. It's just one to be aware of. We've got a creek that looks nice. We like the rocks. The mix of grasses is good. I don't think I could place the environment. And that's partly due to the remove heavy rough tool, and partly we've got different grasses and bushes going on. I like it. I don't know if I could tell you where it's supposed to be. We've got a city skyline as well with the rocky areas. Again, there's lots of elements I like. It's some of them may be a bit confusing altogether. But I guess the rocks are more placed rather than. But then the creek. I'd be hard pushed to tell me somewhere where it's really flat. We've got a creek, we've got a city just across the water, we've got a big lake, we've got round out textures, and we've got scrub-like planting like this. There's a lot of things, and pine straw and mulch stuff. There's a lot of cool stuff going on. I could be wrong for being forgiven with this. I don't know if it exists in one setting. So yeah, waterways are going to be a big feature of this course by the looks of things. You've got a creek going through. There's a lot of water, and yeah, I'll be interested to see how this goes. As a plot, I think it's cool. It's definitely on the fantasy end of things because we've got kind of manufactured water here and here, big pond here, big pond here, big pond here. Then we've got the natural creek going through with rocks. I'm not sure this all ties together. Why is that creek going there, and why does it have rocks and stuff like that? I think when we get to the higher end of contests, that's the sort of stuff you're nitpicking. It's like that sense of place. But it looks nice. I really like looking at it from above. It looks awesome. Like the textures work really well. As I say, I like all of the planting. We're just going to nitpick, and we've got crowds as well, which is always fun. I think when these are done well, they can look really good. And the rough paths through here are nice too. Okay. And we've got a clubhouse up here with people outside. Yeah, that looks good as well. I mean, technicals, I don't think I'm really going to be, like with most of these courses, technicals towards the top end, it's hard to fault most of them. As you can see from the 2 manipulated tees, I'm not sure we've got much difference between them. And we've got some more kind of manicured planting behind. Okay. I mean, it's basically just hit a straight tee shot, which we can't do. Oh no, we got lucky. So some forgiveness built in, and I'm hoping I've left. Yeah, the partial wedge would leave me something sensible in. I like that you've introduced the creek early in a non-threatening way. Although, to be honest, this little waterway is never really going to come into play again. Yeah, I kind of similar to with Cascada. I feel like maybe the water hazard got thrown in afterwards. It would be really good to chuck your plot down, make your plot make sense first, and then design holes around the features rather than it feels like you put the green down and then dug the creek out around it. Would be my guess. I could be wrong. Bunker shapes are fine. I think they could be they could be lifting a bit more, but actually for the style of course works pretty well. Pretty solid opener. Yeah. And I like we've got this little runoff that has hints of being, I mean, it might feed into the bunker. If so, that's about as well done as it can be because you've managed to get the bunker to show and yeah. Green speeds 155, so which is an odd published speed given that fasts are 154. I think that there you could give schedulers a little bit more variety by most people are going in the 140 range because that allows a different speed you could use. Cool views over this side. I think under the trees back there could use a little bit of planting, same with out to the right. Just you really want to make sure that there's no visuals. Okay, no kind of what's the word? Blank spots because you can see under these trees, for example, here, and like even just dropping one big tree down there behind them would sort that out. I like the little dotted bunkers down here. It's a bit of a different style to the first hole. But like bunkers on the outside of the dog leg works nicely. And this green's got some friendliness to it. Really like this one. The bunkers do feel definitely a different style to the first hole, where they're more like simple shapes and less clusters, and this one's got more of a cape, but there was one that was doing that a little bit on the first. I like that we started up with two short fours that maybe don't require driver. The choice to make is just you hit driver up into that neck, do you lay back a little bit further. There's not really an angle to be gained on this one, which is okay, but they're kind of, given there wasn't on the first, I'd probably want to be preferring one side of the fairway over the other. But with a hole like this, I think you would benefit more from taking your green and turning it more on this axis, reward people for playing close to those bunkers on the right hand side with a better angle into the green, etc. Whereas kind of just those are the bunkers, but really it's like how short can you get into this green. Cool green site. This was one of the holes I really liked on my first playthrough. Just think it sits nicely. Like enough interest on that putt, but nothing too severe, and there's a good amount of forgiveness on that green. We appreciate that one. Lighting perhaps a touch blinding here. Yeah, it's just one of the trade-offs if you go clear skies. Just avoid routing directly into the sun, I guess, but it is what it is. I actually get a better angle to this pin if I play away from all of the trouble over this side, which feels a bit odd. There's a hill, and we've got the bunkers right next to the water, which I guess are a bit of a safety net. I feel like you're probably wanting me to play over here more. But maybe this is just a change-up pin. Oh, I haven't checked the manipulated tees in a while. Okay, so it's just significantly shorter on this tee. Which I guess makes sense because you're giving me a lot of space to hit down here. And then the green. And kind of get around that big slope. Planting looks really, really good along the waterway. pulled it a little bit, but hopefully it gets a bit of a run off that ridge and just rolls around. We've got a flattish, but yeah. So that's always a helper slope into the middle of the green, which, I mean, it might be a nightmare if you get stuck the wrong side of it. So here to here as a putt will be problematic, but generally speaking, you're hitting a long approach in, you're probably not miscalculating by that much. It's probably okay. Playability wise, I'd have loved to have seen a bit more on the tee shot. Just, I don't think it required me to do anything in particular. And for a par 5 where you can ramp up the danger and the risk element a little bit more, compared to the first two were kind of, do you want to go for it or do you want to lay back a bit more? But getting that full wedge in. For this one, it was kind of just bombs away. I'd like to see diagonal carries or things like that. Okay, this is our first required element, short par 3. I mean, the grass planting and the texture is really, really good. And that's taken some significant time, as is the rock wall. Looks excellent. Bunkering here. Yeah, so here we're going for more of this sort of cape look. Green itself is very contoured, but it's a short par 3. We've got water nearby. And all bunkers. This just kind of becomes you've got to hit your spot. It's hard to inject strategy on a short par 3. That's kind of all you should do. And like I could play for the centre of the green, and that gives me a bit more room to play with. I'm going to, but I could. Yeah, a little off. I think this green is really nicely contoured for a short par 3. It's not too severe, but there's enough on there. You can see the clear 4-pin sections 1, 2, 4. I think those work well. Technical work around the green's done really nicely. Good shape. I think we parked. It was the correct choice. Yeah, city stuff in the background, I don't know how well it works for me. Especially because you then get this view over the side of the autumn backdrop that you haven't been able to block out, whether for meter or otherwise. Okay, this one. The manipulated tees feels a bit odd because we've got so many different possible tee boxes. I don't know whether it benefits. Right, this hole was a big miss for me on the first playthrough because you just always play down here. This part of the fairway feels superfluous, and I get that we're trying to inject strategy and chucking a split fairway hole, but it feels really wide and out of place compared to the other holes we've had, which are kind of narrow and more straightforward. And the bunkering strategy just, they feel like dotted everywhere. It's a bit of a minefield, and sizing wise, compared to the fairway size, is pretty far. Just notice we've got no light rough. Again, for CC, for me, that's a no, particularly as we've gone for pretty narrow fairways so far. With quite a lot of bunkers. Didn't notice it on the second because you were always running into the bunkers. I will say the way you've splined the bunker edges and got the fairway coming out of them neatly, that's really nicely done. That's easy to overlook and takes time. I probably get a bit of an angle benefit if I go over here, but I just don't think anyone's going over here. Grass again in front of me looks great. I might be tempted to chuck up a couple of bushes over here to vary it. And for all that the lighting was a bit difficult on the last par 5, like on here you get the payoff where it looks really good. Just to drive down here, I think. But yeah, I mean, there is some strategy as to where you play it. Just not sure the split fairway element really works. Oh, sure. Okay, and we've got front to back sort of green, which I think works. Or rather, it's just kind of elevated front here and then low running away from it. that gives us options as we has played to middle pins. Not my favourite green on the course. I think it works. Again, it's at CC level. Just, I think front shelf and then running to back is tricky to do. I guess, as with others, I know it's a shorter par 4. I'd have probably just flattened out the entrance to this a little bit more so that you can bounce it on and get to here. But it's a short approach, so it probably doesn't really matter. I'm nitpicking. Green is fine. Okay, now playing over the water. I know this is kind of a visual thing, but I would love to be able to actually challenge the water rather than have a bunker put in the way. Here we do get an angle benefit. For the more we carry it, the better we can get around these bunkers. But it's not an angle we can ever really get to, at least from, yeah, so from the other tee, it's more playing down here and taking water onto your left. Just think you've got every other hole where there's no water in play, where you can chuck bunkers as a carry hazard. Why not use water for the variety? Especially when you're going bunkers on the far side. I kind of get that it's a half-stroke penalty, whole-stroke penalty. Just, yeah. With this one, it's just find the fairway again. I can't carry the bunkers, which means I'm always going to be carrying the bunkers on my second shot. So it kind of didn't really matter how far right left I played on that tee shot. It's just find the fairway because I'm always be facing the same shot. Would be nice to angle the green touch more gently and then offer me a bit more space to play down the left. And then I can get a reward for playing close to the water rather than come over the bunkers anyway. And that's not the shot we wanted. But might hit downslope. I will say, compared to other courses, the lack of light rough I don't think has hurt this one so far. On the other courses that did that, it was really, really detrimental. But on this one, I feel okay so far. A good mix of par 4s, I think, so far. Like, would I have tweaked a few of them? Sure, but actually, I don't think any of them have really been a miss. Maybe apart from the split fairway hole, that one didn't really work so well for me. Okay, one thing, and it's really tough to do, but we want this water to be visible off the tee, particularly if you're tempting people to go for it. You've got to be able to see where it is, and that's extremely tough to do with sculpting on a this flat. And I think part of what's causing you the issues is how high this is to how low this is, and everything kind of running away from you. And probably the required element you took on makes this even tougher. But we've got to show that off because I can't tell that danger is there off the tee at all. I can just see that's there. It didn't need much. Pin tucked behind a little mound. I think this adds enough interest. So I do get rewarded if I carry the water because I'm bouncing up probably green side and then able to chip around the little mound. I've got options of playing down here. I can play up here close to the bunkers. I can play back here. There's more forgiveness, but there's always something to think about, which I appreciate again. I'd have probably lost the first bunker and just given it was pure fairway, but that's the only thing I think I'd have really changed. I don't know if I can carry it on this one, which means we go back to 3 wood. That was a really bad tee shot. Okay, now we found the heavy rough, and I think that's a fair punishment for that tee shot. And the reason I think you've gone with no light rough on this one is because of the bunkers and how they integrate. You could have gone light rough around here and then just had no light rough between fairway and bunkers. It is an added time sink, but I think that would have been better. It's just an absolute, having done that before, it's just an absolute pain. Nope. Yeah, this was kind of a hole where I was always playing for par, I think. Let's just not make any sort of big mistake. So I played this one right at the start when it came out. I haven't played it again since. I remember really liking it, and that stuck with me. This is an interesting green. I like this par 3 green. It's got good amounts going on. We've got a high shelf, runs back towards a low tier, so we can work a ball to a pin a slightly different way. Front area, you've got this subtle little mound here. I think the bunker looks, this front bunker you've done really well, because the sculpting and playability on that is difficult. Just the course looks really good. Quibbles about where the environment might be aside. Visually very impressive. Probably the best looking. Well, yeah, I think the best looking of your courses I've seen. And I generally like the visuals. Oh, hey, it's a solid first 9 holes. Feel like we're kind of repeating ideas a little bit in that it's just a lot of the time it is drivers pinched or lay back. I feel like pretty much every short par 4 has been a variation on that. What's our alternate tee? The green's further forward. White or green, I forget. Yeah, I'm on white, and green would be short. So let's just have a quick look for argument's sake. So it's basically just each hole plays kind of 30 yards different or so. That would probably go some way to explaining the amount of hazards and bunkers you have on your holes. And I think when you're doing this with every hole and trying to make it play really well from 2 tee sets, that becomes very difficult because suddenly you have to put bunkers in for lots of different driver distances and 2 different tee sets. That will explain why it kind of feels a bit over bunkered in spots. This one feels perhaps a little claustrophobic. I'd have taken out a few of the trees, probably. And then there's lots going on in the landing area. It looks a little busy. And we've got the water, which is kind of framing water. I don't think it's really in play. I guess it's for a very bad tee shot. But again, popping bunkers in front of it is a trick I might do once or twice on a course. I don't think I'd do it as repeatedly as we've done. Anyway, I feel like if you can hit a partial drive around this course, you can do very well. I love the dip behind the green and the naturally planted area, and this cool little halfway house is fun. What sort of building it's meant to be, but I like it. I'm sure there's some sort of inspiration. Not halfway. Well, not a halfway house, given the clubhouse is right there. I'm not sure whether this little heavy rough patch is necessarily meant to be there. Go benefit of the doubt, but I'm guessing not. Doesn't matter really. Not big. Yeah, we've put in details with like little stairs and things behind. This might be our first bogey. Horribly out of position down there. I guess I still think this does belong in penal school of design rather than necessarily strategic. Or rather, the strategy is often do you want to lay up? Do you want to go for it? But there are clear shots to hit, and oh, that's awful putting. We've given away both the 2 shots we earned. Dreadful. Some really cool cross course views as well. Yeah, working back out has the trickier lighting. So again, it's just kind of pinched, and here's the tee shot, and the green is straight on. And there's not much to analyse in terms of strategy here. It's just hit a good drive. Longer tee set, I think, on this one. I think the 3-tiered green may be a little bit much for a par 4 this length, particularly if it plays into the winds, but you did specify wind conditions, so I guess you can control that. Sculpting around this green, there's something off about this green, but I can't quite put my finger on it. I'm a bit curious why we've got fairway here but not fairway here. It would make a bit more sense to have a little bit more short of the bunker. I think that would be visually a bit more appealing as well. What it is. Yeah, I'll tell you. Okay, made it to the right sort of tier. And we can get a shot back. Again, choice of grasses is great. The orangey grasses look really good. There we go. 11 par 3. Again, I think a little visually busy. We've got bunkers kind of everywhere. We've got grass cutting in. Probably remove grass on this side and that grassy mound. You just don't need this much stuff, I would say, because the grasses that you've used, those look great in bulk. Like this sort of area, you've nailed this look. Just use it as a big area to draw your line and be happy leaving stuff open a bit as well. Longer par 3. And with the green being propped up, you're missing out a little bit on just allowing run up short. Because it is, again, we want to facilitate people getting the ball onto the green for CC. So give us room to roll the ball on if it's not quite as well hit or towards a front pin. Front pin on this green is probably one of the toughest, probably the toughest one, because you've got no forgiveness in terms of length-wise. That is not a good shot. Thanks, game. Grass planting above this bunker is really well done. And the little remove heavy rough, like technically scoring this really highly, I think. That's not it. Need to not end up in bunkers as much. I will give that shot right back again. Yeah. Again, it's a little visually busy off the tee. We've got lots going on. I think you can just simplify where your planting and bunker spots are, and that will help your sightlines immensely because it is quite overwhelming off the tee. There's lots of stuff to look at, and just cleaning some stuff out, I think, would give you a better look. Probably looking at widening the fairway this side, because all I can see is a sea of bunkers down here. You can't really see what the hole is doing because there's lots of stuff in the way. You've got a big feature out here that will draw the eye, so have like simpler on this side, therefore you're looking a bit more here. And maybe cut the grass in front just the once rather than here and here and here. Things like that. And I know how frustrating it is to take planting away. These people are in danger. And again, we've got a creek coming in that's not really in play, so it's kind of just visual. Which water for I guess now it's in play. Water for CC is a tricky hazard, but even then I can maybe not with the lie. I'd just like to have seen the creek play more of a part other than visually. Visually it looks great. Just where it's coming through holes doesn't really make a huge amount of sense for me. Okay, well if I can get a wood out of it, can I? Then we can probably clear the creek. Not like that, we can't. At least we can drop on the fairway and we can still potentially get up and down for a par. not a huge amount to the green. There's a back tier, a low tier, and kind of front, and then we have that spine, which is similar to the R5 on the front. The greens are definitely, for me, a hitting CC level. I would say probably upper end with the speed and the amount of slopes on these sorts of parts. It's not giving up birdies particularly easily, but it's also not punishing. But they could use a bit more interest in terms of rolls or like subtlety, and a large part of that for me is the angles that we're able to generate coming into them. Like I said, no manipulated tees on this one. This is just the tee you hit from. Yeah, again, it's just, do you feel you can thread the needle? Oh, not even that. I guess carry all of it or lay back. And if you want to lay back, how much is it? Because it's not necessarily much wider here than it is down here. This hole just needs more fairway. And the light rough would really help here. Visually, I like it. I think, yeah, again, you'd benefit from a wider fairway out in this direction. Would really help this look just a bit more inviting. Scaling's, I'd say, just a touch off. Oh, there's that slow 3-wood off the tee again. Okay, we only have a wedge shot in, and it's out of a bunker with a decent lie. This green's probably a little bit tough for what you're going for, and the bunker feels kind of a different style, like just the one bunker. Not massively so, it fits. I'm just commenting that it looks different. This is the first hole where I felt I would really have appreciated light rough. Maybe not the first, but like one of the first major ones. Yeah, that's a shame. But I think that's on me for missing where I did. I mean, that's a tough shot for anyone on CC. They're probably ending up down here, but the hero shot is getting up and down, which I'm okay with. It is on the harder end of courses, and I think you've probably hit kinetic difficulty more than CC. It's not one that is. There have been courses in this contest that have totally missed on difficulty. It's not one of those, but it has missed on difficulty, I would say. This is one where you didn't manipulate the previous tee. This is one where I definitely wouldn't have manipulated, because your view from the other tee box is so much better. Like, put everyone here, and I think the hole doesn't gain anything from me being over here. We'll say the green feels kind of sprawling, and I don't know if it does that much for me in terms of the slopes. Visually, the hole is awesome. Like that, I think just put everyone on that spot and let this one do its thing. Playability wise, I don't love the top shelf, because we've done that a number of times. Just like, here's top shelf, it runs you down to lower shelf. I also can't really see the bunker you want me to see as well as I potentially could. You can kind of see the side of this bunker, which looks less good, which would be hidden from over here. Okay, I'll roll our way down. No, it's an exacting shot. I'm okay with that one. Okay. Ugh, what a tough string of holes at the moment. Just in terms of how I'm playing, not necessarily how they are. Okay, yeah, visually, I think I've got a few issues with this one. So this isn't the back tee. Can't see those two bunkers off the tee. I can see one and I can't see the second. You can see the top of this. I think we can smooth that out a little bit. I can't see the landing area because it's over that second bunker where we want me to aim. I can't really see this bunker. This is all just a bit awkward, and the water on the right feels awkward as well in terms of it being higher than here, and I know this part of the plot doesn't really work for me so well. And again, we're kind of hitting that partial driver so as not to run into that other bunker that we can't see. Again, yeah, the green, this is probably the toughest pin on here. I like that you've given us a little rough dip here to stop us hopefully going into the water. Again, bunker in front of the water. This one sculpting is difficult because of where the waterline is and where the high point is. I'd have lost this. It's causing you issues to sculpt, rightly so. It's nearly impossible to do, and I don't think it's adding anything playability wise or really visually. Okay, just find the green somewhere. If I make the right tier, that's about. Yeah, again, I'd probably like to have seen if you'd push the green out here. There's a bit more risk reward in going for it. As is, it's kind of in the middle, and if I'm off tempo, I'm in a bunker because there's bunkers everywhere, or I'm in heavy rough. But like going for it isn't in question, because and I guess that's the penal school of architecture again. Like the punishments are there if you miss, rather than put it next to the big hazard and give me space to play away from it. I mean, there's a little bit of layup area short. I could play for that, but if I'm playing short, I'm playing in between two bunkers and water anyway. If I'm playing up here, I'm playing between bunkers and water anyway. Why not? I think give me my biggest takeaway for you. I think, oh, go on. Your courses will gain so much more if you give people freedom to play away from hazards rather than putting hazards everywhere. So I think that's what's really holding this back for me. Like, and the pinching of driver and like layup, that's basically been main tee shot strategy. Okay, so this one, is it drivable from the other tee? It's not. Yeah. Okay, this is one where it just feels it is a completely different hole. Okay. Just let me remind myself of what it is from the other one. I do it from here. Okay, so back there is 161. Okay, so this is cutting through it like 295, 300 or so. So quite a long par 4 on this tee. And then drive ball on this one. It's going to be nearly impossible to come up with a green that works for both. Because that's probably too severe. I guess you're doing it with your pin positions, but that's probably too severe for a long par 4, I would say, generally. The short par 4, my decision's pretty binary. It's either I hit a 3-iron into this layup area. I don't really think you can use. No one's going to choose this area, certainly. Because one thing you could have done would have been make it progressively narrower. Like if you brought your bunker string out this way, well, then choose how much danger I want to take on. Whereas here's just like, well, here's the fat part. This bit's all the same width. You might as well go for it. Because actually, laterally, huge amount of dispersion going for the green. That far. I play down to here. Barely any, and I'm probably running into bunkers. I don't know if I trust myself with a wedge, and pin breaks away in 3 directions. So, and one of them being long, I think I'm just going for it. And I'm okay with hitting into the back bunkers. Or we get a very fortunate bounce, and then we roll off. I'm just trying to work out if you can drive that. I guess you probably have to put some fade in it around that mound. I don't know. I think this is trying to be two things at once, and it's kind of as a result. I think you designed it as a long par four first, I guess. If it's a long par four, I think it needs a more forgiving green rather than this little tongue. And just bringing the green out here would be all you need. Because I remember when I played it on the other one, if you're laying back here, this is phenomenally difficult to hit into, and there's a lot of hazards around it, particularly for CC. If it's a long par four, you're going to want to allow a fairway bailout rather than just caping the green around all sorts of trouble at this distance. Because if that's a carry hazard off the tee, people are potentially laying up and hitting long irons or even woods into this green. You've got to allow them a way to get it onto the green pretty safely, or have a safe miss or layup, because nobody's playing here with from here with a third shot on a par four. If it's a drivable par four, then I probably need a few more options as to how to lay up anyway. I think the same thing. The bunker string needs to change regardless of the par on the hole. Just it's so difficult. It's a challenge I've got in my mind for future of like designing holes that play from different tees completely differently. So difficult. And when you're doing it that drastically, it's kind of even tougher. Okay, so we can hit 3-wood to this sort of area, or we can hit driver down here, and then disconnected green, kind of islandish green, definitely memorable. Might get lucky. Let's get lucky. So definitely, like, how much do you want to take on again? The cutting the corner. It's not so much avoiding certain hazards. It's kind of because I think again the landing zones were pretty similar in terms of forgiveness laterally. I'm not saying necessarily squeeze it. Just this one was different enough in that I was cutting the corner of the dog leg. Oh, sit down a little. That's not bad. I like the green site. Again, if people were laying back with shorter clubs, you've got to think about flattening the front entrance to the green so that they're not always propped up, because that can get a bit punitive after a while. Battled back to -1 and a par 5 to finish. Okay, oh, I can see the tee box in front of me, so it's a little bit shorter. Yeah, this one's a bit of a mess. Like, it's just the bunkers on the outside. You've got to give me space to play away from the water. On CC, this is going to cause absolute nightmares because people have to calculate exactly where they're carrying, not to run out. And if not, they're laying back way up here. And we've got a kink in the fairway. Like, that could have been... This could have all been fairway. And we've tucked a bunker on in here, so they can't even play 3-wood to, like, here without running into those bunkers. Just, we're doing way too much in the landing zone. And to top it off, I can't really see the water, which again is we're going to go in it, I think. So we use that drop zone, but like, yeah, you're forced into taking on all of that trouble. And I know it's a short par 5, but these on the out, if you're going with big trouble on the inside of the dogleg, this is a big kind of common takeaway for you. You're going with trouble on the inside of the dogleg and you're using water, leave lots of space on the other side. And I think your single biggest thing that I would say that you should be looking to take away from this playthrough is, well, there's a couple, but I think the biggest one has to be don't just keep bunkering or putting hazards on both sides of the fairway, because that's just really penal. It's the Jack Nicklaus school of design where it's just hit the fairway or else. And yeah, that can work, but hey, that's a way to end. Didn't see that coming. It can work, but when it's overused, it gets really repetitive. It works really well on a hole like a narrows, where like you're gradually bottling in. But yeah, just be careful of just scattergunning bunkers wherever, and think about every single time you're putting down a bunker, does that actually help playability, or how can a weaker player get to the green and make an easy par in our game? In real life, I'd be thinking about how can you really help someone make a bogey? And like, because we think about playing bogey golf in real life, you could easily play safe drive, hit up short of the green, chip, 2 putts, easy bogey. Even if you're applying that mindset with your hole designs, they'll get much, much better. So, like, where's the safe area short of the green for someone to lay up to? Because in this game, what that translates to is if someone hits in a bunker, where can they bail out short of the green that's going to give them an easy chip and putt? And also thinking about how they can land the ball short to roll it on, because most of the greens were propped up. I don't actually remember a single one that was at ground level. Okay, so in summary, also, I'm delighted to have holed out on 18. Final interruption from small children done. So, in summary, yeah, I think the manipulated tees probably hurts a little bit more than they helped, because I don't think they necessarily changed the angles enough on most of the holes. It was really just a case of shortening or lengthening, which therefore led to, I think, in part, the kind of over hazarding, because you're placing them on 2 different tee sets. So effectively, the way you're doing it is doubling the amount of hazards. And I don't know whether you went in with the mindset of doing those 2 different tees, and that's kind of a product of that, or there were loads of hazards and then we placed the tees and then we maybe placed some more hazards. I'm not sure. I thought the plot, there was a lot going on, and the water, I think, probably could have come in a bit more than it did, particularly the creek. Like, creeks can add loads of strategic value. Like, play as close to it as you can, play over it, side green just one side of it, stuff like that. And I don't think you necessarily took advantage of them as much as you could have done. I don't think they really made too much sense in terms of the overall plot where they were as well. Those are, and the other main kind of nitpick I think I have would have been the difficulty is a bit tough in places because of its constant drivers pinched, lay back, and like then bunkers on both sides of the fairway. And I think the big thing is then the no light rough. And then when you couple that with all the greens being propped up, it's becoming more and more of a hit the perfect shot or else. Not the perfect shot because you built in forgiveness within that dispersion, but there's not so much of different ways to get to pins or like alternate ways of playing holes. That said, I always want to end the videos on the positives. So the things that I really liked, I thought the environment's outstanding. I don't know where it is, but I really liked it. All of the technical work is really, really good. I think you don't have an issue with that sort of stuff. Like, you can make the designer do what you want. There's a few bits on sculpting and sightlines that I think you can clean up, but technically really strong. One of the strongest, I'd say, in the contest. So it's really just the decision-making stuff for me. Aesthetically, really liked it. There's a lot of shots that will stick with me. I think I certainly that on that closing stretch, I really liked the 17th and that green site. Yeah, probably a little bit penal with the tee shot, but I thought the green site itself was really cool. The par 3 that's overlooking the kind of skyline, I want to say that's 14, was really visually strong, as was the short par 3 on 4. I really liked both of those. And I thought other things I really liked, I kind of wish it had been utilised a little bit better, but I loved the bunker string on 2. The little bunker strings worked really nicely. Yeah. And like, I definitely wasn't bored, and it made me hit good shots. So yeah, a lot of fun. As you can see, I got punished when I was playing badly, and I got rewarded when I was playing well. And that's kind of like the penal school of architecture in a nutshell, I guess. So that's the final one of these playthroughs. Hopefully useful as ever. Really enjoyed the course. Best of luck in the contest, and see you again soon.